Greetings, Stars fans, and welcome to the Two Brothers Mic'd Up show. If you didn't know, what we do is we review the recent Dallas Stars game, give our thoughts, discuss them to you right here on YouTube. Before we go off and start each discussion, we go back to the last video. Towards the end, we give predictions for what we think the scores are going to be for either team if they come out on top. Quinn, you liked a score of 3-2 for Dallas. You missed two of these, and you come back and you already hit one. You liked a score of 6-1 for Minnesota. Yes. And I like the score of 2-1 for Dallas and a score of 4-1 for Minnesota. So, it is the Stanley Cup Playoffs, Game 4. The biggest headline going into this game is Kari is out, Auntie Niemi is in. Now, whenever I first heard that, I think you know exactly how I felt about it yesterday because I had some rants going on around the house. What did you think whenever you heard Kari was out and Niemi is in?
I mean, I was 50-50 on it. I mean, if it pays off, it's a good move because, you get Niemi into a playoff game. He gets experience. He gets a win. So that's going to bolster his confidence, in case Kari comes back in Game 5. He doesn't have a good outing. So you put Niemi back in for Game 6, and you hope to seal it away with that. But at the same time, pretty much every goal in that game couldn't be attributed to Kari. 2 goals come from defense and forwards not picking up their man properly, and they just easy goals that are just a shot pass, tip in.
I think the Koivu one was the only one that you could say.
And you take Kari out whenever it's clearly to see that it wasn't his fault. Ultimately he gets the loss, but it wasn't his fault for it. Does that break his confidence? Taking him out, saying, Niemi, you're going in after one game. Is that basically saying, Kari, it's your fault we lost? That's why we're putting Niemi in. You don't know how he's going to rebound to that, so just a lot of questions going through.
Yeah, the Stars started playing the big if game. They let a lot of questions go out there, but then they didn't really say much about why Niemi goes in. The only thing that they really went back to is that they did it all throughout the regular season. They didn't really let a goalie catch a huge stride. They would see that a goalie is getting a little hot, but then there would be a goalie change just to see if they could have the other goalie come in and pick off that momentum. But this is coming after a loss. And so, to me, it felt like if they're shaking up the goaltending, and goaltending hasn't been a problem for Dallas in this series. Game 2, I think Kari kept us in that game. I think Game 3, Kari kept us in that game. That's the only reason why it was 4-3 when it was, because Kari kept it from being like 7-3 or something like that. To see Kari getting yanked and Niemi going in, it played with me thinking that what if Niemi goes in and just lays an absolute stinker? That's when you now have a goalie problem. Because if Niemi goes in, lays out, they don't pick up a win, they go back to Kari. What's Kari going to be thinking? What's Niemi going to be thinking? But then Niemi comes in, he gets the win, but overly, it wasn't anything spectacular. I didn't think that he was the difference in this game. He made good saves, but it's nothing that Kari couldn't have done. There's nothing about the way Niemi played in that game that said, okay, no, this is exactly why Niemi was in this game. There wasn't anything that stood out that said Kari couldn't have done anything like that. But, ultimately, I guess I can say that I was wrong to get so worked up about it, but then again, it just seems so weird to let Kari get out because you know what? The one thing is that Kari has never won a playoff series. He's never won one. And pulling him out and then putting him back in game 5, I mean it doesn't really take the series win away from him because Kari was in for the majority of it, but it just kind of seems like, okay, it kind of, to me, it sends a message to Kari that we can't fully rely on you to pull us through a series. Do you get any of that?
Not at all. I think they were just experimenting out. I mean, I feel they have 100% faith that Kari can pull him through, but I mean, if they see game 3 as him faltering a little bit, maybe bring Niemi in, because Niemi has won a Stanley Cup. He's been to the playoffs a lot. He has the playoff caliber. But I mean, how is our 1A goalie ever going to get that kind of experience if we don't play him after he has a setback? So
yeah, I mean, I understand that we had been doing it for the regular season, but the playoffs just seem to be a whole different sport. And if Niemi has all this big pedigree to him, and Niemi was playing good down the stretch, just like Kari was, but I ultimately think Kari played better down the stretch. That's why he got the start in the series. It just seems like a lot of people are saying, like, Niemi's been there, he knows how to act. Why wasn't he the starter in game 1? It just kind of, to me, I mean, granted, this is all my opinion, this is all what's working around in my head. It just kind of seems like they're still a little hesitant to let Kari take the brunt of a complete series. But then again, they got the win. Move on, don't hang up on it. See what happens in game 5. But the start of game 1 wasn't a great start. Or the start of period 1 in game 4.
I was about to say, game 1 was like a week ago.
And this one wasn't a great start. It was like the Stars just picked right up where game 3 left off. It was slow, not a lot of action, and the Stars just got super in the groove of just icing the puck.
Yeah, I felt like I was watching a dessert making show with how much icing was going on because, it was ridiculous. Every, minute there's an icing, and that's going to kill any type of momentum that your team is trying to build because you keep being in the defensive zone.
To me, what it looked like is that once Dallas felt the pressure coming on from Minnesota, it looked like they were like, let's reset this. And then they would clear it down to try to weather that forecheck, that momentum that Minnesota was building off of game 3 and off their crowd, which they were super loud in this game. It just felt like every time Dallas felt like they were getting in trouble, they dumped it down. They didn't want to take any kind of chances, and you don't necessarily win games like that. I think moving into the second period, they started taking more chances, granted, because they had to, because Minnesota scores first. But that first period was not a period that I thought they were going to come out with. I figured they would have looked at game 3 and then rebounded to try to figure out a way to work around Minnesota's plan, around their physicality, around their momentum. And they didn't do it, at all. At the end of the first period, how did you feel about Dallas's game? Now, they outshoot Minnesota 10-9, but overall, how did you feel the game was progressing?
It felt like the whole game was just relied on Minnesota. It seemed like a Minnesota hockey game, not a Minnesota versus Dallas hockey game.
Yeah, they and again, Dallas outshoots Minnesota, but Minnesota had chances, but then again, they weren't really capitalizing on a lot of chances. I think Minnesota was missing a lot of chances throughout the game. I think they lost more chances to themselves than Dallas prevented them having chances. Going into the second period, the momentum starts building up. It starts feeling like a playoff game. You have Pominville getting the first goal at, let's see, about 5 minutes into the period. Whenever that goal goes in, I'm like, well, here it goes, because Dallas was kind of just trying to weather the storm in the first period and couldn't really do it. And they don't really adjust much. I mean, they started shuffling lines a little bit, but it took a while for their lines to really get going. And once that goal goes in, I mean, what did you see on that goal?
Just absolute anarchy in front of the net. Nobody knew who to take. I mean, all Minnesota is going to do in this series is shoot the puck on net and have 2 or 3 guys crashing in front of the net, because that's how they've scored basically every goal in this series. Shoot the puck at the goalie, they get that low hard shot to force the rebound, and second man picks it up and gets it in. I mean, that's hockey 101. I mean, you don't need to be shooting field goals like the Dallas Stars seem like they can only score a goal unless it's bar down, top shelf corner, far side. I mean, it's proven, especially with Foxa, like late in the season, that just easy shot that Roussel takes, bounces off the pad, rebound, in. I mean, that's just simple hockey. That's what Minnesota is playing right now. It's just simple hockey, and it is destroying the Stars.
Yeah, the complicated nature that I think Dallas likes to set up for their offense, or just their team in general, is really starting to get bogged down by the simplification of defense in the playoffs. But, you know, the second period starts off just like the first period. I mean, the Dallas starts icing it a lot whenever they're feeling momentum, but then they catch that when the Dallas is skating into the Minnesota zone, they try to dump it in, but then it gets immediately intercepted and kicked up to Niederreiter. And Goligoski is with Niederreiter. Or no, it gets kicked up to Pominville. Pominville skates it up the ice. Goligoski's with Niederreiter. Niederreiter he gets the pass right inside the Stars zone, and then does a little slant to where he goes towards the slot. Goligoski is still with him until Suter comes in and kind of pinches in a little bit, and then Goligoski, all he does is try to get his stick on him and try to do like this weak hook on him. Doesn't stick with the man. Doesn't skate with his man. It looks as if once Niederreiter starts that little slant towards the slot, Goligoski sees Sharp over to the other side and is like, okay, well now Sharp will take care of him. Oh wait, but I better just keep my stick on him just in case. It doesn't work like that, Goligoski. You need to stick your body on that body and make sure you take him out of the play. Take a penalty right there. Do whatever you have to. I would much rather you put 100% on the play to try to disrupt it than to just give you about like 60% and see that someone else is over there that you hope is going to jump into it, because Sharp was still 2-3 feet away from Niederreiter to where all he could do was really stick his stick out. Is it solely on Goligoski with that goal? No.
In my opinion, yes.
Well, I mean, there were some other defensive breakdowns, but ultimately Goligoski should have just stuck with his man. Now, the Stars go about another 4 minutes before they score, but it comes off of a Dumba puck clear that ultimately gets put into the Minnesota net. It's like the second goal on the power play that the Stars have scored in this series, and it's a goal that they absolutely needed. There's no ands, if, or buts about it. If the Stars were going to stay in this series, their power play had to wake up, and this was the game that it did it. You had a real heads-up play by Demers at the blue line once he gets a pass from Russell, he sees he doesn't really have that clear of a shot. I think, they started to calm down a bit. He decided that, instead of just dumping it in on net to see what happens, give it to Hemsky because he has a little clearer line of a shot. And who was it in front of the net?
Sevier.
It was Sevier in front of the net. And Dubnyk, he peeks to the right when he should have peeked to the left. But Sevier gives the perfect screen. And once Dubnyk peeks to the right, Hemsky fires a laser beam. Top shelf. And Dubnyk, all he can do is just pray that it hits him. But it doesn't hit him.
Yeah, it had shades of Jason Spetz on that shot.
Exactly, and that's the thing that I like about Hemsky is that he has those flashes that shows you that he's worth having on this team. Unlike Nichushkin. But I'll save that for another discussion. But then we see the Stars. They answer the call of the Wild. But then a minute later, not even a minute later, like 56 seconds later, we see Goligoski just get absolutely flustered at the blue line. Turns it over, and it gets skated back. Who was it? Porter?
I think it was Spurgeon.
Spurgeon, and then he does a little slap over to Coyle that ultimately just outworks Goligoski and gets kind of a lucky bounce, but the way he was playing it seemed, just right. I didn't really like how Niemi played that breakaway. It seemed like he just didn't know exactly what to do. I would have liked him to just gone down on the butterfly and, kind of just hope for it instead of like that little sprawl that he did. I think that's the only criticism that I have with Niemi in this game. But again, the defense in this game, you heard Razor talk about it all throughout the game, is that the defense was playing better. And to an extent, yes, I think the defense did play better. I thought Demir's played better. Jordy Ben wasn't in the game because Russell is in, which is an upgrade. I thought Johns and Oduya continued to be the best pairing, and Klingberg actually looked better. Now, it could just be to an extent of a fraction bit better, but Goligoski is just the bane of the defense right now, and we saw it last playoffs when we were playing up against Anaheim, that when Trevor Daley finally got back in the lineup, he just seemed out of place with the defense, and it's the same thing. Goligoski is just thinking too much. He had an easy play to just dump it back by the boards, instead tries to hold on to it like he's Klingberg. I don't think I've ever seen him dance the blue line like Klingberg has, and the time that he thought that he had was gone. What did you see on that goal? Or what did you see in the offensive zone whenever he's trying to dance the blue line?
I mean, just play to your strengths. I mean, Goligoski is not Klingberg. Johns is not Klingberg. Oduya is not Klingberg. None of the defensemen are Klingberg on this team. And I think sometimes having Klingberg in our lineup kind of hampers our defense a little bit because, they see Klingberg doing it. He's up and coming. Now, maybe they're like, oh, well, maybe I should try and do this. Maybe I can pull off a good play like Klingberg. What most people don't know is Klingberg grew up playing offense in his younger days and only got moved to playing defense, in juniors, I think? Like his first year of juniors. So, I mean, he has an offensive mind to him. Not saying Goligoski doesn't, but Goligoski was probably raised to be a defenseman since he was little. I mean,
and that's really the point. Like, he should know how to manipulate that time and space at the blue line. And whenever he feels pressure, he, instead of just trying to bring it back towards the middle, just put it back by the boards.
Yeah, dump it in. Let the offense take care of it. Let them lose the puck, but you do your job. I mean, as long as you do your job, I mean, you can't really be blamed for it. I mean, probably some fans will blame you for it, but I mean, ultimately, you did your job. Somebody else failed at theirs. Guess what? It's their fault now. But I mean, also, I feel like Klingberg should have had the sense to see that Goligoski was going to be pressured, that he should have started coming back. You know, ultimately it falls on Goligoski, but it may not have been Klingberg, but whoever the defenseman was on the left-hand side, you know, you got to be smarter than to just stay at the blue line, seeing two players rushing your other defense partner, and you're just like, well, he's got it.
Yeah.
And hope.
Yeah, there was like 100 different things that he could have done and elected to do the worst one. And, you know, for 5 minutes between whenever the Stars first scored and whenever they scored again, like, for 5 minutes, it was up and down hockey. It was back and forth. Penalties that Minnesota takes. You know, you got the Dumba one, and then you got the Niederreiter one for slashing, which was a slash. He knocks John's stick right out of his hands. But, you know, to see the Stars come back and fight is ultimately what has got them through the regular season and put them in this position that they deserved the top seed. You know, they don't really give up. I mean, the last game kind of looked like a give up, but this team has the weapons to fight, and it's the depth scoring that always tends to drag this team out of the mud. You get Eves getting the second power play goal, and it comes off of a tip from Russell. But the big play on this goal is that dive little swat by Klingberg, keeping it away from the Minnesota player. Without the heads up play that Klingberg did, and this is, you know, why they were saying, like, you know, the defense has been better. Without the heads up play like that, that's not a goal. It gets gone. It goes back the other way. Maybe a shot on net, and Niemi has to cover up, and the play's dead. But with that heads-up play by Klingberg, keeping it away from Minnesota, we take it back into the zone. Pass gets over to Russell, and he knows he has the forthright to just shoot it on net because he sees Eves kind of streaking right there in front of Dubnyk, and Eves gets that little tip on the puck, like inches away from Dubnyk's glove to where it just goes right under it. It was a great play. But then the Stars follow up with Spezza's goal. And it's another heads-up play that you see from Demers. Jamie passes the puck across. It gets over to Demers. And instead of Demers just cranking a shot on net, he elects to just kind of throw it to where Spezza is to try to get the tip on it. Granted, he gets the tip, but it hits him in the skates. And it gets past Dubnyk for the go-ahead goal. Whenever the second period's ending, going into the third period, what were your feelings there?
I mean, Stars better keep it on. Like, Minnesota's not going to just sit back. Minnesota's not that kind of team. Minnesota's going to play even harder. They're going to hit you harder, shoot harder. They're going to try and score any chance they get. They're going to take shots. They're not going to elect to pass. Like, all they want to do is shoot the puck on net and hope it goes in and try to throw you through the glass. Like, that's the kind of team Minnesota is. And it's a shame to see that Dallas doesn't kind of adopt that kind of play style whenever they're down. Like, yeah, they try hard, but their try hard is a way different approach than some of the other teams in the NHL. And I think Minnesota has it figured out. Like, that's how you're supposed to play, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, in every category, Minnesota led in this game except for goals. They had more shots, 30-22. Dallas had more penalties because of Roussell's double minor, which we'll talk about. Minnesota has more hits, 27-19. Dallas has more giveaways, 2-1, which I think it should be more, but that's another thing. I still don't understand what they constitute as a giveaway. Minnesota had more takeaways. They had it 8-3. And the big thing that kind of stands out to me is that Minnesota has more face-offs won, 43-27. Now that's a pretty big margin right there, and especially whenever you heard on the broadcast last night that all of Dallas's centers are above 50% on the face-offs.
Not anymore.
Yeah, like this game kind of really set it back, and you could tell that Minnesota was still bringing all that momentum that they have, all that stuff that they were feeding off the crowd. And in the third period, I mean, that was probably the most exhausting period of hockey that I had seen in a long time. Dallas didn't adopt to be aggressive. They just decided, you know what? Instead of going punch for punch with Muhammad Ali, we're just going to take everything he has and just tire them out and then try to counter what they were going to give. Not the strategy that I would implement against a wounded, desperate team in the third period, because they're just going to be throwing everything at you. Towards like the last 5 minutes of the game, you see Minnesota really starting to press. Did you think, when Roussel takes that penalty, did you think, okay, this is just where karma runs out, or did you think, now that we have this penalty, we can just clear it as much as possible? What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, the only thought that was going through my head was just get through it. Just get through it. Fuck Roussel, but just get through it. Like, that was just a stupid penalty to take. No need for that penalty to take. I mean, the thought that went through his head that, hey, maybe I should just slap at the puck while it's riding the glass with my stick at head level with somebody coming down the boards. This seems like a good idea.
And 9 times out of 10, you see a player just take a swipe at it with his glove instead of the stick. But
I think I've only seen it one other time, and that was whenever Tyler Seguin tried to do it in front of the net and got away with his high sticking. But, I mean, you got to be smarter than that.
Yep. Overall, the game ends. Minnesota doesn't really... They have like one chance, and it's when Charlie Coyle is on the side but snaps his stick. I think that was the only real threat that they had. But overall, as a defensive game, how did you like Dallas's game in this one?
Dallas only won this game because they had better luck. That's the only reason why they won this game. They didn't outplay Minnesota. They outscored Minnesota because of 2 fluke goals that went in. And yes, I'm calling the deflection that Eves had a fluke goal because, I mean, deflections don't always go in. Just because you get the perfect deflection doesn't mean it's going to go in. It still takes a high amount of luck to get it to the right spot. Now, granted, he is a professional hockey player and knows how to do it. But, I mean, what are the odds that it actually goes in? Spetz's goal, pure luck. I mean, Demers just happens to make a bad pass, goes off his skate, and gets back and gets by Dubnyk. I mean, Dallas was outplayed in this game, no hands about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think even though Dallas has a 3-1 lead, this easily could be 1-3 for Minnesota. Like, Dallas ultimately played amazing in the first game. But now Dallas is getting outshot overall in the series. But, I mean, they're still outscoring Minnesota, but Minnesota has found another level. Dallas hasn't found that next level from game one. They're still trying to coast off of that. Dallas needs to find that next level, but I think with the power play, with how they did, I think that next level could come back in Dallas. Let's go into the ratings of this game. What did you rate this one?
I gave it a C minus. Just barely passing. Because, like I said, Dallas, in my opinion, in my opinion, Dallas lost this game. Like, hands down. They lost this game. They happened to pull the win out because they had better luck. The hockey gods were on their side. But, I mean, the luck's going to run out eventually. And it's going to turn into another Game 3 thing that goes on. Somehow they need to channel Game 1 for Game 5.
Yeah, I gave a B minus only because of how they responded in that second period. I liked Niemi coming in and, doing what he's done all season. And I like the thoughts of them writing this game into Dallas. I didn't really think it was all that bad of a game. But, Dallas's defense did step up just a little bit to earn that B minus instead of like a C plus. So, with Game 5 on Friday here in Dallas, 8:30 start, what kind of scores are you looking at for that one?
Just to start off with, I think Dallas needs to adopt the Minnesota.
I agree.
Right now, and for one, scratch Nichushkin.
I agree.
And put Moen in for physicality. If you could, call up Richie, scratch maybe Sevier, maybe Janmark for extra physicality, because they need it. Scratch Goligoski. I don't give a fuck if he does have an A on his jersey. In my opinion, that thing should have been stripped a long time ago for his play. Put in Alexiak or Nemeth. Because, they obviously cannot play worse than he is playing right now. And they are bigger than him, and they are going to bring physicality. Dallas needs a physical game on Friday, or they are going to lose. If they can, or they just weather the storm like Game 4 and just try to hold them off, I'll say again 3-2. And if Minnesota comes out on top, it's just because, the luck's on their side this time. I'll say 5-2.
Yeah, you have to wonder, because Dallas has been getting the majority of the bounces. Or the big bounces, the game-winning bounces, the game-changing bounces. Like, Minnesota has gotten good deflections. They have gotten some bounces, especially in Game 3 with their 2 deflection goals. They had a deflection goal in this one. You have to wonder, is Minnesota due for a big bounce like that? If they are, I think it's going to be a close game no matter what. I like a score of 4-3 either way. First 1 to 4 wins the game, in my opinion. With that is the discussion. Be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up to date with these. Hit the like button down below. Leave any kind of feedback down below. Remember, this is a show for fans, by fans, and, as always, tune in next time.